Hi, everybody. Today we've got Kevin Davis from To Increase. We're going to talk a little bit about their rental application for Dynamics 365 Finance and Supply Chain Management. So, Kevin, a little introduction from you.
Hi, Debbie. Good to talk with you today. You and I have been working together for a number of years, as you know, in the Microsoft partner world, and now at To Increase for a couple of years. We've been working together. To Increase is a global ISV. Uh, in fact, Microsoft's largest global ISV. We have a portfolio of about 15 different solutions for Microsoft Dynamics finance and supply chain management. And that portfolio is broken into really industry solutions, advanced project management, advanced project manufacturing. We also have the rental product that we're going to talk about today. And then we have some other products that are have a wider footprint across different types of businesses, including our rapid value product, which is a business process management product, master data management, connectivity studio, and some security and compliance products. So we offer a wide range of extensions to Dynamics 365 that kind of help extend it to that last mile, as Microsoft talks about. But today, you and I are going to talk about DynaRent and the rental business and how we can help companies that are looking to leverage rental software as part of their D365 deployment.
That's right. So I want to talk a little bit about identifying the kind of customers that need a rental system. Are they only the people who've got just a big rental business? Tell me a little bit about the kind of customers that you're working with the rental software.
Well, when you think about rental business, really think about two components of that. One is, your over-the-counter retail rental store down the street where you need to rent something if you're working in your yard or small construction job. There's that sort of rental, which is more of a retail over-the-counter rental. Then there's the larger rental of equipment where you look at construction jobs and you see, road graders, dump trucks, cranes, backhoes, track hose, all those sort of big equipment things that you think about. And then there's kind of the specialty rentals. So if you let's think about a concert where you have a stage and you have speakers and risers and lighting and all that. That's all a rental business as well, because there are companies that rent that equipment very specifically for that sort of, let's say, outdoor entertainment. So we can support a wide variety of rental type customers with our rental solution. But what we really want to focus on today is talking about manufacturers, people who make products and then either sell them or rent them to their customers in some sort of a financial transaction. Because there's really two things in terms of rental. There's first of all, the financial transaction of it. You have a rental contract with terms and conditions and payment and things like that. That's sort of the paperwork, electronic part of rental. And then there's a physical part. There's a physical asset that's being rented and then being serviced and repaired. So if you think about, the heavy equipment out on the construction site, things like belts, hoses, needs oil changed, it needs service repair. That's all part of that process as well. And when you're in that business, either manufacturing a product or just renting a product, you need software that supports all of those business processes, whether it's the financial side of the transaction or the physical, logistical side of the transaction.
So Kevin, DynaRent, it's an application. Is it written in the same with the same user experience as the D365 product? Does the user think that they're moving from one piece of software to another, or is it all fully integrated?
It's all fully integrated in D365. You have the same user experience because we're simply another module within that entire deployment of various modules within D365. The screens look the same. the fields, the business processes, the layout, the user experience. They really won't know whether they're in base D365, as we say, or within the rental application because they're so intertwined in terms of the business processes, but they all look the same. So
So,
that it's all really handled in background. It's written in the same code that Microsoft writes the base product in. We operate in the same database, the same tables, same dimensions, the same financial setups that are used for base D365.
so I mean that's great because it does mean that there's sort of like transparency between the systems, and I imagine the data is all residing in the same database.
Yeah,
So
same
you've got
Azure database.
all those hooks, the financial postings can be set up, so all the money is looked after. Um, so I can see some real advantages to having that all in one. Can you tell me a little bit about how a project normally happens? Do you work with the partners? How do you normally, or do people implement their D365 first and then they go and put the rental piece on next? What's common in terms of how people approach doing their rental systems?
The most common and preferred method of implementing is implementing in concert, in parallel, as part of the overall D365 deployment that the partner is managing and working with the customer on. That way, all the software is loaded together, all the configurations are done together, and all the user acceptance testing of each of the business processes are done at the same time because we're so integral to everything that happens within D365. You really want to set that up and test that and deploy it all at the same time. Now, certainly if somebody's already deployed D365 a year or two or whatever time period later, they discover, we need rental software. We can deploy into an existing D365 deployment. So
Right.
that's not a problem. We could do that. Um, it's just a little bit more difficult in terms of the financial setup configurations, because when you're making those decisions on how to set up all your financial tables and your business process, you want to make that decision once with all of the software loaded, if you can.
Right. So, so in the best case scenario, an organization they've decided they need new business application, they need new ERP, and they're going to look at the whole thing at once. I'm interested, what improvements, what enhancements, what benefits or value are clients getting that you see, that you work with? What challenges are they addressing or problems are they solving by bringing in new technology around not only D365, but moreover, something specific to the rental side? I mean, do you see people coming off Excel spreadsheets, or are they coming off mainframe legacy systems? What are they looking for? What are the things they say they really need from their rental application?
Well, first of all, they want to be connected. They want all of their systems connected together, and they want those in kind of what we would call the seamless cloud. So if you think about somebody who, first of all, designs a product, then builds a product, and then services a product, we have what we call design, build, and service. And you want to be able to do that in one system as integrated and interconnected as possible. So as you design the product, let's say in a CAD system like Siemens Teamcenter or PTC Windchill or whatever, you want the design of that product to be brought inside of D365 so you can populate, let's say, production engineering. So then you can generate a bill of materials and a production order to actually produce the product. That's
Right.
the build portion of it. So you want those two things connected. D365 provides that space where it's going to land and be produced. Our PLM connectors bring it from that CAD system inside there. That's fully bidirectionally integrated. Once it's built and it's in your inventory, and then you either sell it or you service it or rent it, then you want the information that's there from that build to be available for the service repair folks in the field or people that are coming back, bringing information, bringing equipment back to get service. You want your service techs, your maintenance techs to be able to access the as-built and as-maintained structure of that product. So when they put in a new starter, they put in new hydraulics, they put on new tracks or whatever, they keep track of that. So you have a cradle to grave, beginning to end history, not just of the production of that piece of equipment or that machine or whatever, but then the servicing of that. Today, a lot of times it happens in three pieces. The design happens totally outside. They got to bring an Excel spreadsheet in or hand key in. Then you got to build. And then over here, you have the service part of it, which is in, a brand X solution or whatever. And you can't bring all those pieces together into one cohesive, cloud accessible beginning to end solution. So that's the best case, the best way to be able to deploy that is to use the foundation of Microsoft, with the Azure ecosystem and D365 as the foundation and the core. And then you have these other, products like ours that connect those pieces into that core, and it keeps it all connected. There's one version of the truth. Everyone can access it. Everyone can update it, all based on security in that. And then you have a total life of that product from when it started, how it's maintained, how it's depreciated, what the financial life is, and what the physical equipment life of it is. That's the best way you could do it.
Right. And that's basically what people are looking for. They're sick of having their data all over the map. They can't, it's spreadsheet hell trying to pull this all together to get that overall view of what their equipment's doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you hear words like the manufacturing cloud, and essentially it's not just the manufacturing cloud, but it's the design, the build, and the service part of that cloud, which all comes together in one piece.
So I'm interested in the service side, and I know Microsoft have got Dynamics 365 Field Service, which is based on the customer engagement platform. Is this what you're using as part of the field service, or is it a to increase module that sits within the finance and supply chain app?
We can do an either or there, because right now in the market you have people that are deployed finance and supply chain and maybe CE, so we can do some integration between those two, because from a field service standpoint, CE is great, particularly when you're doing service in the field and you're deploying people in trucks with parts and things like that, and you're invoicing. That's really good, does a great job of that. When you're bringing those pieces of equipment back inside the building, kind of back into a repair facility or that, then you can do that inside of finance and supply chain with our advanced service management module. That's included in either project management that we have or within DynaRent. So we can do either of those, and we have integrations, and we can build additional integrations from the D365 customer engagement field service piece. So it really depends on how you're going to interact with your customers and how you're going to service that equipment as to which solution is going to be best for you to deploy. And that's something we could work with your customers on to decide what's the best way to manage that business process.
Got you. So I really want to drill down into the understanding for Dynamics 365 if finance and supply chain customers, what the ISV, how it impacts things like the upgrade cycle. We know that we're getting updates thrown at us every 6 months now. How do we know, or how do our clients know they're using the standard out of the box system, that they're secure and safe and sort of future-proofed by adding an ISV product on for such a core area of their business?
Absolutely. As part of the ISV program, we have to commit to following Microsoft's release schedule. So our products have to be in sync at all times with Microsoft's release schedule. So when they provide a new release, we have to be able to match that release. And we work very closely with them, all the time in terms of sequencing and making sure that our products stay in sync with their releases. So it's called the evergreen release, where there's two major releases a year, and then there's really some monthly minor updates that are done. And so we have a development team that develops based on Microsoft standards. They test and check with Microsoft on that, and then they release in the same cadence that Microsoft does.
Right, right. So in terms of when that new release comes out, how is their support? I mean, I know D365, finance and supply chain, people our users are familiar with things like the RSAT tools and the testing tools. Is that all covered with, that's all available too with the modules from to increase?
We
Just
do
to ease that.
exactly the same testing that Microsoft does.
Okay. All right. So I want to ask a little bit about, what's next. I want to talk about, Industry 4.0, factory of the future, all of these new technologies like IoT and artificial intelligence, machine learning. Tell me a little bit about what you've got right now or where you're heading in terms of some of those, like the technologies that everyone's reading about.
Well, let's start with what you said, IoT and artificial intelligence. So if you think about a machine, whether it's a crane or a backhoe or a track hoe or a dump truck, or let's say a pump, or even a medical device. So if you think about that machine, there's just a ton of data that's coming off that machine literally in real time as it's running. And so that data needs to be captured somewhere, and then it needs to be analyzed. So what we're doing is we're working to capture the data streams of information that are coming off of there using Azure Learning to then analyze that data, so you can tell, one, when a piece of equipment needs to be serviced ahead of time, so you're proactively determining when you're going to do service on that. It's not that, oh, it's broken, now I got to perform some service on it. It's all predictively based on the Azure Learning. That machine's going to need serviced in the next 2 months, so I'll schedule it now and avoid that downtime. So you can control the downtime of the machine by analyzing that data in a much more granular fashion than just waiting for it to break. And so you also can then manage your inventory better, because you have predictive maintenance on that machine. And then from that, you can determine what inventory you need to have on hand. And then you can order that inventory, procure it ahead of time without having to just, have extra stuff on the shelf. So it helps your cash flow. So if you're not spending investment on parts you don't need, and you're repairing that machine before it breaks, so you have less inventory that you're handling, and more uptime on the machine, which means more profitability for you then as the business owner. So that's what we do with IoT. The other thing we're doing is in terms of mobility. So if you think about today, everyone has a cell phone, everyone has some sort of a mobile device, and you want to enable your workers, whether they be a factory worker in the warehouse, or a yard worker in the yard, staging equipment for rental, or whether there's somebody out on the job site itself that still needs to put some data into the system, where you may not be able to capture 100% through IoT and AI. You can still capture through human capture through mobile devices. So that's one of the things we're doing, is pushing more of that information, that interaction to a mobile device, so that the employee can be better prepared, better informed, and can provide that information in an easier fashion than you think about guys still coding Excel spreadsheets or just hand penciling pieces of paper and somebody else keying it in. You get rid of that entire process. So those are two of the things that we're working on. The other thing we're working on is uh, to be in parallel with Microsoft, the use of Power Apps and the use of breaking down what we would call monolithic pieces of software. So as you think about some of these big systems of yesterday, and you think about today, your cell phone, you have apps. Everything on your cell phone is a small app. So it's really broken down into smaller pieces. Well, we're trying to do the same thing with some of these bigger pieces of software where we may only use the financial engine of DynaRent. So we break that down into a smaller piece, easier to deploy, quicker to deploy, or the logistical piece where we're only going to use that because that's the piece that the customer really needs. So we break
Right.
that down into a smaller app, which makes it operate faster, makes it deploy faster, makes it easier for the employee to work with. So those are just some of the things we're doing.
That's great. That's interesting. I know that certainly in our clients, IoT, there is a variety of people who have started, halfway there or all the way there, collecting the data and trying to work out what to do with it, all the way through to having a business model that relies on that data. So certainly see that there's been a huge shift in the last, maybe five years on people are actually doing it now rather than just talking about doing it.
Yeah.
For the clients of ours listening and are trying to sort of work out whether or not this is something for them, I'm interested to know, can you give me a range of the size of customers that your solution has been implemented in? So, what's by far the smallest sort of in size of the organization in terms of, let's say, revenue or employee counts, up to what the largest is, and then give us an idea of where that sort of middle average is in terms of the size of clients that are using this as an application.
We deploy globally, so there's really a wide range depending on where the customers are located.
Right.
But generally, we're gonna look at about 25 to $50 million in annual sales revenue as kind of the starting point. So if your business is generating that level of revenue and you have some really complex processes that you have to manage, then you can make the investment needed uh, to to deploy both D365 and the DynaRent solution. But on average, I would say we're looking at 100 million and above customers that can justify that level of investment. And
Right.
then, uh, our largest customers are in the billions of 5 to 6 billions and globally, deploying across multiple countries, multiple continents as
Right.
well. So
Right.
it can fit any of those businesses, but the first thing you need to do is just figure out, okay, how complex is my rental business, and what can I invest in solving that part of it. Um, the other part is they may be a manufacturer that is generating $500 million a year,
Mm,
but their rental business could only be maybe 20 or 30 million of that. And you
right.
say, well, does that make sense or not? Well, it does in many respects because you're going to touch so many more areas of the organization and your business with this that other, let's say, 80% of the business is still going to benefit from the business processes. So you can
Right.
still make that justification. If you did it on a standalone basis, you say, no, it doesn't make sense. But when you expand it, uh, it makes sense. Plus, it positions you to grow that part of your business. So maybe it's 10 or 20% now, but if you grow that by 50% year over year in 5 years, you now have a standalone rental business of $100 million. So
Right.
it does make sense.
Right. Right. And I think maybe to try and position again, um, just like with D365 finance and supply chain, I'm sure the DynaRent product has competitors talk a little
Mhm.
bit about the competitive market. What do you see in terms of the strength of the, I think the overall Microsoft Stack solution was pretty resounding just from what you've said already.
Yeah.
But where do you see the competitive strength against, let's say, the competitors of taking a solution with the Dynamics/DynaRent model?
Most of the other solutions out there, that competitors to us, are focused strictly on rental. That's really where their core is. They don't manage the manufacturing portion of it. They may not handle the logistics and distribution as well, and they will hit some limits that we won't hit because we have the underlying foundation of D365 finance and supply chain.
Right,
So, there are competitors within the Microsoft ecosystem as well. Some of those folks are focused more on dealer management and that sort of a business where you're talking about, equipment rentals and the heavy equipment piece. But we're building our solution so that it's more flexible to be able to handle both of those pieces and really support at its core a manufacturing company, because that's where Microsoft is focused. That's where their future is going, is to focus on the manufacturing part of this. And what we want to do is support after manufacture the next part of the market, whether it's a sale and service or a rental and service back to that
right.
manufacturer.
Do you know what? And I think that that's a market, certainly in my, from what I've seen, is growing. I mean, manufacturers are expanding their footprint more and more these
Mhm.
days, right? And technology is asking manufacturers to do things they never imagined doing before.
Mhm.
So they never imagined having a web store to sell stuff in, and they're
Yeah.
doing that now. They didn't imagine that they would be doing direct to consumer potentially, or direct to end
Yeah.
customer. That because they have struggled with supply chain struggles over COVID, etc. So there's a lot
Mhm.
of models that are up for revision and renewal, and being able to capture things like the rental market is an opportunity for a
Mhm.
manufacturer that maybe hadn't thought of it before.
Yeah, if you think about what we talk about, asset as a service.
Right.
So if you think about, let's take a pump manufacturer,
Yeah.
somebody who manufactures pumps. They're really manufacturing a fluid movement system.
Right.
So they're helping somebody, move water, move fuel, move something with their pump systems. And so instead of just selling them that pump, they're now renting them that pump over a period of time. They're servicing it, and that they keep that asset on their books. They receive the benefit of the depreciation of that. They also keep ownership of it, but they have a revenue stream that is coming back on that asset to offset the cost in that. So yesterday's business was build it, sell it once, you're done with it. Now today's business is build it, not sell it, but rent it, generate an ongoing revenue stream, and then
Right.
service it to even generate more of a revenue stream with that. And that way, the customer isn't having to take the financial outlay of buying that and then financing it through third party in that. It's just a more creative way, one, to handle the financial track transaction, but
Mm.
also more of a creative way to interact with your customer.
Yeah.
And if they're renting from you over a 5-year period, when year 5 comes up, they're more likely to come back to you and get another uh, piece of equipment and keep renting it, as opposed to buying it. And in 5 years, they go shop around for who's got the best piece of equipment. You've been helping that customer all the way along those 5 years, and they've been paying you. So they're used to that transaction. They don't want to change it at that point.
Right. Right. So I think we've probably covered a pretty long list already today. So
Mhm.
maybe we'll call it good for now. Kevin, I'm thinking that we probably need to do a session like this on some of the other apps from To
Mhm.
Increase. I think it's been really informative, and certainly there are a number of our clients that I think will have some real interest in what we've talked about today, and maybe it'll pique their interest in some new opportunities that maybe they were wondering how they would execute on. So on behalf of Sikich and our team here, thank you very much, Kevin from To Increase.
Well, thank you, Debbie. I appreciate the opportunity. Look forward to working with you and your customers.